Another week of NFL Sunday action is in the books, and in this episode, we'll be talking through some of the best waiver wire and must-add players to pick up here for Week 7 fantasy football. These are players that, whether it's due to injuries, are able to be the next man up and take that step forward on the team's depth chart and, of course, see some more usage for their teams, or maybe they're rookie players breaking out and finally coming into their own with their respective offenses for this season. Whatever the case might be, we'll be diving into over 10 players in today's episode that you need to target here in your various leagues for Week 7. And as always, if you're new around here, make sure to drop on down, smash that like button before we get started, and click the subscribe button before we get started with today's video. I'm posting more than one fantasy content piece every single day of the week here, Monday through Saturday, and you don't want to miss out on any of that stuff. We'll be starting our Week 7 fantasy football playlist on our YouTube channel today and have videos like our lessons learned / takeaways video live on there in the next hour or so from the launch of this video. So go check that stuff out today, and I'll see you guys in the video. Let's get started. Alrighty, as always, I'll be starting today with the must-add running backs for Week 7 of 2022 fantasy football. Now, of course, the priority for this week is the fact that Week 7 also, from here on out, Week 6 was actually the beginning of this, we have bye weeks every single week going forward. So the critical teams will be without this week include the Buffalo Bills, the LA Rams, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Philadelphia Eagles. So at this running back position, we're going to be without key names like Miles Sanders and Dalvin Cook for this week. So if you're looking for a reserve option or some depth here, look no further than the names we're breaking down to start off today's video. So for the running back position, as compared to other weeks, this isn't the most exciting week of waiver wire ads. However, Kenyan Drake is my priority running back at this current point in time. On Sunday afternoon, the Baltimore Ravens took on the New York Football Jets in the early Sunday afternoon slate. And unfortunately for J.K. Dobbins, he seems to have re-aggravated or re-injured his ACL tear, the knee that he's been rehabbing from since the 2021 preseason, in which he tore that initially. And he had some stiffness or some tightness and ended up missing the second half of that game. And in his absence, his backup Kenyan Drake here filled in for him and absolutely balled out, having 10 rushing attempts for 119 yards and a rushing touchdown, as well as 2 passing game opportunities for 1 reception and 8 yards. Now, this level of involvement kind of sets a precedence for Drake going forward here. He won't have this level of efficiency going forward, and who knows what the timetable or situation of J.K. Dobbins' health is as we move into Week 7 here, but this is definitely a critical pickup for not only J.K. Dobbins owners, but those owners as well that need that extra running back depth here for this week. This is the most amount of usage Drake has seen since Week 1, which J.K. was not actually available on the field. He was still rehabbing from his injury, and the Ravens were trying to do their due diligence to make sure he didn't get injured and re-suffer some setbacks here. However, the worst situation played out here again. We don't have specific details on what this means for JK, but he did miss a large portion of the second half of that game. So this is somewhat of a committee style approach. You're going to see other running backs sprinkled in, used in various ways and patterns. Maybe a guy like Justice Hill, for example, gets involved in the passing game. But for now, Kenyan Drake at just 4% rostership on Yahoo Fantasy looks to be a pretty intriguing ad for this week. Caleb Huntley moving into the Atlanta Falcons here. Again, this isn't the most exciting week ever. However, Caleb Huntley has kind of emerged as the either 1A or 1B option in this Falcons committee in the post-Cordero Patterson injury situation. Now, CPAT hopefully can return after his 4-week hiatus on the IR. But right now, you're seeing a lot of Caleb Huntley and a lot of Tyler Algier here. Huntley is owned in just 7% of leagues. We kind of saw that number pop up a little bit after last week's games. However, in this matchup here for Huntley, he had 16 rushing attempts, the team lead here for 59 yards. Again, this is a running back by committee offense. You've got Avery Williams sprinkled in there as well. And no man is really getting workhorse touches. But if you're going to get 16 opportunities on the ground, this is a tougher matchup against San Francisco. I had Tyler Algier as a sit for this week, assuming he'd be the lead back here. He had 15 rushing opportunities, respectively, on the ground for himself. So obviously a high precedence on that area of the football for Atlanta. Marcus Mariota had some rushing attempts as well. And like I said, Avery Williams was lightly sprinkled in there. So for Huntley, though, this is a guy who's getting red zone opportunities. He's getting the nod in that area of the field in some looks. So that's valuable enough to make him worth a roster spot in some deep deeper leagues here as we enter into week 7. Deon Jackson here. Now, he would be my priority ad for this week, but there are a couple of variables at 43% rostership that make his situation a bit hard to project here for week 7 and beyond. So, first and foremost, Frank Reich told us last week that Jonathan Taylor was expected to be able to play, and he expected that his availability would not be in question for week 6. However, he was ruled out on Saturday morning, I believe it was. And then we kind of got the, gust of wind that it would be the Deon Jackson show again, because you've got guys like Nyheim Hines, the immediate backup here, who is also out. He's in concussion protocol. And now you've got Jackson, who was initially a cut by this team in the preseason, being once again kind of the star here. He was very, very good down the stretch on Thursday Night Football in week 5 against the Broncos. And then he comes this week absolutely balling out before sustaining a quad injury, which of course is the other area of concern here. So you've got Nyheim Hines, you've got Jonathan Taylor, and you've got Deon Jackson, all in some relative injury protocol here. However, I will note 12 rushing attempts, 42 yards, 3.5 yards per carry. None of that screams excellence and jumps off the paper. However, he did have a very impressive truck stick on the goal line. 10 targets, 10 receptions, a 100% catch rate, and 79 yards through the air. That's where he made his hay today, outside of that receiving involvement. So this is a capable player. This team needs to have an emphasis on the run game in order to have success and effectiveness on a play-by-play basis. So for Jackson, if we're without Jonathan Taylor again this week somehow, some way, he becomes a very valuable weekly lineup stream here. If not, though, he becomes almost a useless and irrelevant player that just kind of sinks back down into the abyss of your waiver wire. So you're going to have to evaluate that for your team, your roster size. As always, I am here to help you guys with your fantasy leagues this season. So any questions you have about roster management for me, whether this be a trade, a waiver wire pickup, something that you're trying to do to improve and better your roster in any way, shape, or form, let me know that in the comment section below. I'm happy to help and get back to you guys at some point in the coming days here. So for Deon Jackson, again, either a really valuable piece here for a week, maybe more, or maybe not so much. If the quad issue, we don't know too much about it right now. I'm recording this after Sunday Night Football. The Cowboys kind of made a run of things here, and then the Philadelphia Eagles ended up pulling back ahead. Besides the point, you guys don't really care about that. You watched that or caught up on that game yourself. But for Deon Jackson, again, it could go one of two ways. And then finally here, Mike Boone or Latavius Murray. Now, like I said, I'm recording this after Sunday Night Football, so we haven't actually watched them play the Chargers on Monday night. Should something happen to Mike Boone or Latavius, who we're not going to cover in great depth here just because we're going to get the video moving along here, obviously adjust accordingly, and you can always ask comments about or questions about that in the comment section below, but I'm assuming that Mike Boone is going to have a very valuable role in this offense. Now, in just 10 touches on the Thursday night against the Colts in week 5, he averaged 8.5 yards per touch and was very, very effective in that backup role. So while he's not necessarily delivering starting lineup caliber play every single week, when you're getting to a pinch with having these brutal bye weeks, especially at a running back position that's insanely thin right now, this can become a valuable ad. So at 40% rostership, he's available in over 50% of Yahoo leagues. Latavius Murray's usage is even lower, or rosterization, his overall utilization on the free agent market here as it pertains to fantasy football. So check him out. Potentially Latavius could overthrow Mike Boone here. All things to look at as we move forward into the coming weeks. All right, let's talk some must-add wide receivers now for Week 7 fantasy football. Kicking things off with Michael Gallup at 50% rostership on Yahoo Fantasy Football. Now, this is, not the most available player in the world, but we're going to cover him today because I think there's a great opportunity for him to grow his value and become potentially a flex level lineup candidate with the return of Dak Prescott to this offense. Now, Michael Gallup coming off of the ACL injury, missing the first portion of this season, and then having to reintroduce himself into this offense with a guy like Noah Brown who's emerged here, and then having to compete with him with Cooper Rush, the quarterback, without Dak. It created somewhat of a non-desirable fantasy situation for Michael Gallup as it relates to our teams here, because his chemistry with Noah Brown was evident from start number 1, and CeeDee Lamb being the alpha wide receiver in this offense, in an offense that's passing volume is critically low here because of the fact they're just trying to play ball control football and minimize their turnovers and mistakes here. there wasn't much work left to be had for Gallup. Now that Dak Prescott comes back here, I think the Cowboys start to pass the ball a little bit more. Maybe not so much becoming a super pass-happy team. They know the strengths of their team are the defensive side of the ball, and they don't want to get, super risky with how they play in their offensive attack. But I think it opens up the ability for Michael Gallup as a true X receiver right now to press the field vertically and use some of his leaping ability in contested grab situations and scenarios and become a bit more of a high ceiling fantasy play. Now, this isn't going to be a volume receiver that has a great floor in a given week, but we'll be able to pinpoint those matchups where he should have favorable opportunities. And for his health right now that looks to be in check, it's an advantageous situation. So I'm targeting Michael Gallup as arguably my top fantasy wide receiver pickup in week 7. You could also make the case for other names here to follow, such as, maybe not, but Rondale Moore at 46% rostership, just 4 points below where Michael Gallup is right now. The reason I like Rondale Moore, despite the fact that a lot of us are assuming he's being bumped down to the number 3 wide receiver role in this Cardinals offense, is because Hollywood Brown suffered an ankle injury. It was actually an insane interception by Woolen, the Seattle Seahawks defensive back. He came down and landed funny on Hollywood Brown's ankle, and he had to leave that game and get some x-rays. Now, thankfully for Hollywood owners and for him as an individual and a player here, those tests came back negative, so no breaks in the bones or anything like that that are going to make him miss extended time here. We could be looking at between a minor or severe ankle sprain. He probably misses a game or two here at minimum. If he's out there too, ankle issues, man. I've been talking through this the last few weeks after learning my lesson the hard way with Gabe Davis and Amon-Ra St. Brown. We sat T. Higgins this week, another player coming off an ankle injury with very lackluster production. So if that's the case, if Hollywood grits it out, it's a short week here. I highly doubt he'll be out there playing the Saints on Thursday Night Football. DeAndre Hopkins is returned back to NFL action. That suspension the first 6 weeks is now concluded here, and we're looking to move on onwards and upwards with D-Hop's fantasy stock here. Wow, really getting my tongue tied up there. But so what that leaves is a lot of targets available for Rondale Moore. The Saints team has shown the ability to hang with other respectable, formidable competition, like the Bengals this week, only losing by 4 points at home to Cincinnati. So Rondale could get some underneath opportunities. He gets some field stretching work as well. A nice target to take a peek at here and keep your eye on. Again, a short week. Hopkins might not be 100% conditioned for NFL action. You see that being a problem, depending on how many plays they run in this game, he might get gassed out there. Rondale Moore should be a very advantageous look and potentially a startable player for this week as well. Tyquan Thornton at 1% here. Man, did we bully the Patriots as an overall NFL community for their draft picks this year. I gotta say, Cole Strange at guard looks pretty dang good. I gotta say, Tyquan Thornton here in the second round looks pretty dang explosive. And I also gotta say, Bailey Zappi, what was it, their 4th round draft pick there? He looks like a pretty dang good pocket passer as well. So lots of stuff working here for the Patriots draft room, despite the fact that, again, as a greater NFL community, we kind of bully them in a year-by-year basis. But for Tyquan Thornton here, holy cow, did this guy ever make a splash impact here in this Week 6 matchup? Now, he's been dealing with injuries. He was on the IR to start this season. He made some plays in the preseason as well, but he really flashed here in this game, having 4 receptions on 5 targets. Doesn't sound like the most exciting thing in the world, but he had 37 yards and a touchdown. He also had to play 3 rushing attempts, 16 yards, and another score. So really tacking up his fantasy totals and making impacts in the red area, which for a smaller receiver you wouldn't expect to be the case, but he is doing the job and doing it at a high level. So as a young player just getting factored into this offense, a lot of room to grow here. Definitely some interesting things to look at as this offense continues to grow and develop. Now, if Mac Jones ends up replacing Bailey Zappi this week, we'll see how that target share breaks down and continues to change over time here, but definitely worth a bench stash here in some deeper formats. Wan'Dale Robinson, another rookie wide receiver at 8% rostership. I should have mentioned Thornton was at 1% there. He made some plays this week as well. And while the numbers weren't eye-popping, they didn't jump off the page, the wide receiver 1 or 2 role are very much wide open for this Giants team. Now, while saying that, that isn't the most valuable, team in the league to have the wide receiver 1 or 2 for, but it is still having the potential top option for a passing offense in any given week here. A rookie second-round pick in Wan'Dale Robinson, his size is a little bit concerning, just like it is for Rondale Moore as well, but his tape popped off the screen to me, watching his explosiveness. He's a former running back at the college level. He does a lot of things really well, and he's explosive in open areas. in that sense, he's very similar to Rondale Moore, but again, he's not, going to go out there and win a bunch of contested grabs and probably be an alpha wide receiver for any offense besides a poor receiving room like the Giants. So you have to manage your expectations here. Only 4 targets, did catch 3 of them for 30-plus yards and a touchdown. But again, it's more so the upside of the role he could have on his team versus actually the reality of his long-term situation here. Alec Pierce, arguably, and I would say probably a higher priority than some of the other receivers for a long-term role here. His size is definitely not an issue, and he has made some really impressive possession wide receiver plays here. Scored his first NFL touchdown this week on a great contested catch situation. He's doing the things we need him to do. Only caught 3 of his 7 targets, so below a 50% catch rate. That's fine. His catch rate last week was phenomenal. Again, 3 catches, 49 yards, a touchdown. I think he's established himself as the clear number 2 wide receiver behind Michael Pittman in this Colts offense. And we finally saw some juice from Matty Ice this week, throwing 50-plus passing attempts and having a game-winning score here. That, I believe it was the Alec Pierce touchdown that was the go-ahead TD for this team. So hats off to Matt Ryan. The Colts picked up a big dub against Jacksonville at home. And Alec Pierce at 38% rostership looks like a solid bench stash. Again, would probably pick him up over a Wan'Dale Robinson, a Tyquan Thornton. Lots of rookie receivers here today, but these are the guys that pop in the middle of the year and end up becoming progressing assets as the year continues to develop here. How about Tyquan Smith? 0% rostership right now, or less than 1% overall, however. Was a decent streaming option this week if you end up going that route. Unfortunately, I dissuaded someone in our community Discord from starting him over DJ Moore, and that was the incorrect choice there. He ended up having himself a very respectful day. Now, he only had a 100% catch rate. I'll start with that, but it was only on 3 targets. So he had 3 receptions. However, he did score a touchdown, 43 yards receiving on the day, and ended up again outscoring DJ Moore. But for a guy here that, if you look at this, similar to the Rondale Moore situation, if you need a streaming option in your flex this week, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave, due to, I believe it's foot, either ankle or hamstring for Jarvis. I forget what that issue is. Honestly, didn't pay too much attention to it because I didn't really care. And then Chris Olave, concussion protocol. Michael Thomas and Olave just being the more fantasy relevant receivers there. They were all out this week. So it was the Marquez Callaway, the Tyquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood got some action in there as well. It was a real committee passing approach here from the Saints offense. Now for Tyquan Smith, like I said, he is the bigger playmaker, the larger splash impact player for this team. Did score his touchdown very early in this matchup. But if you're in a very deep league, you've got multiple flex positions here, a short week, injuries, bye weeks, whatever's causing you troubles here, check out Tyquan Smith for your lineups in this week's game or potentially a bench stash. Into some quarterback and defensive streaming options here now. A suggestion from the Discord server to dive into this a little bit here. Taking a look at some quarterbacks and defenses I think are actually legitimately worth a roster spot for this week. Much to my surprise, Marcus Mariota is rostered in just 14% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. Now, the reason that's so surprising to me is because his rushing upside offers him great value here to fantasy rosters as a very high-end quarterback too. Now, he had himself a rough stretch of games where he stopped running the ball as much, but I've got a really interesting stat here. So, in the 3 games where Marcus Mariota has ran the ball for 50 or more yards, he has also scored a rushing touchdown. In those contests, he scored 17 or more fantasy points in each game for the quarterback position, and in week 6, he scored a season-high 24 fantasy points against a very stingy but banged up 49ers defense. So you like what you're seeing here. The common trend and thread here is that for the Falcons, you're winning more games when Marcus Mariota runs the football at a high level or being more competitive in games. And overall, you're having a more productive offense. Having that dual option threat in the backfield opens things up for your other running backs. It, keeps the defense balanced and not only respecting the pass game, but the running attack as well. And it's great for fantasy owners. You're getting the job done here now. He does have very solid weapons in the passing game as well. Drake London and Kyle Pitts is of the world. But, of course, the passing volume is very modest here. So that's not where he's really going to be making his hay. It's going to have to be efficiency in that running department. But Marcus Mariota here. If you're without your Jalen Hurtses of the world, your Kirk Cousins, I forget who all is on bye this week. We'll flip back here. Oh, Josh Allen, that's a big one. And, of course, we're without Matt Stafford as well, although that offense has been absolutely atrocious. So into our defensive. Oh, we've got a tight end here to talk through today that I almost did some disrespect to here. Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers, 42% rostership. This is the beginning, I think, of a breakout for him here. This Packers offense has been dying to find a middle-of-the-field weapon, and while their offense is just completely putrid and sucks right now, this comes from a Packer fan, so maybe some harsh objectivity here, but they really lack having a safety blanket over the middle without Devontae Adams, a surefire guy to get open every play. It's been Randall Cobb last week. Randall, unfortunately, was carted off the field and was very emotional, so it looks like he's probably got himself either a bone fracture in the bottom of his leg or a stress fracture, a high ankle sprain, something that's going to keep him out for an extended period of time. Of course, a veteran player like that's probably not getting too emotional unless it's significantly impactful to the status of his career. So obviously a guy who's north of the age of 30, things to think about there. But for Robert Tonyan here, a player who really stepped up in his role, catching 10 passes on 12 targets for 90 yards. Again, he was the safety blanket for Aaron Rodgers. They took a ton of shots downfield this week. If they didn't, it seemed like they were checking it down or finding Tonyan on a crossing route, hitting him out in the flats, something of that nature. So really liked what I saw from them this week. They need playmakers. It's Dobbs or it's Lazard. Aaron Jones has been relatively ineffective, not touching the football as much as he should be here. So it's a positive sign for Tonyan. Yet another list or name to add to the list of viable streaming tight ends off the waiver wire. They have the Commanders this week, which have been relatively stingy in the box score against tight ends. However, against the pass, they've just been underwhelming overall. Into defenses now. The Jets here taking on the Denver Broncos in week 7. So we haven't seen Denver play again on Monday night. Maybe they have their breakout game this week, and this looks totally dumb here. But assuming what we know right now, we've got a banged up Russell Wilson with a lat injury, a PRP injection into his right shoulder, probably not playing at 100% here, and a Jets defense that I think the Broncos and Packers offenses are very comparable right now. You'd think Nathaniel Hackett was still in town calling the plays here, even though he never did that for the Packers in the first place. But these two offenses are sputtering, and we saw the Jets absolutely kill them this week. Now, they did block a field goal, block a punt for a touchdown as well, and have a lot of things bounce their way, but they've got some playmakers, man. They've got from Quinnen Williams to Quincy Williams. Those guys were just lighting people up today, and of course, Sauce Gardner, the guy represented here on the back end, making big-time plays as well. So a good streaming matchup, 2% rostership, so 98% of you in theory should be able to go at him, but liking the opportunity here. And then Xavier Howard and that Dolphins defense here, 16% rostership, so a little bit more. I do like this matchup taking on Pittsburgh this week, coming off of a big win against Tampa Bay at home. They might ride those highs a little bit too much here. You've got Kenny Pickett, and I believe it was concussion protocol. He had to leave that game, unfortunately. Trubisky came in and ended up sealing the deal here. Clownpool had himself quite the day as well against Tom Brady's Bucs defense, but I'd expect some regression here, some more Trubisky-isms, from the good old MVP himself, the Nickelodeon most valuable player, is probably going to be quite the valuable player to Dolphins defense owners this week if he ends up getting the nod over Pickett if he can't clear concussion protocol. So, man, we talked through a lot here today, 16 players to add, or obviously the defenses come with all 11 and the bench, so take that for what it's worth there. But lots of options to pick up for this week. Not the sexiest or flashiest week here, but definitely some solid opportunities on the table for week 7. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to smash that like button before you head on out. Check out some of our other videos that we came out with today. And of course, smash that subscribe button. Turn the bell on so you're never late for a new piece of content. I'll be posting more videos tomorrow on trade content, so stay tuned for that. And I will see you there. Peace out.